Alright guys, this is Pool here, and alongside I almost messed that up. Sorry. Anyways, this is Pool,
This is Senex.
and we're bringing you yet again another game of StarCraft 2 on FRB from the FRB Grand Tournament. Sorry for messing up that intro countless times. Eventually, I will get it, but until then, I'll just continue messing it up.
Yeah, we're working very hard on getting that incredibly smooth, sexy transition that you have when it's along the lines of like, "Hi, I'm Day 9 and I'm DJ Wheat and welcome to MLG," and that kind of thing. We're working on it, and soon it will be perfected. And actually, as you can see right now, looking at this map, this is 6M FRB Shakuris Plateau.
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit more familiar for you guys that are unfamiliar to FRB. This is a map that, of course, is in the ladder pool, except the difference is there are fewer minerals and less gas per base, so that's fewer resources per base for you. That's exactly how it does play out. Now, I do believe this is actually a really good map for this kind of play. I like it a lot because I know there's just going to be so many expansions, and that just straight up excites me. Every time I see a Nexus or a CC, I just get excited.
Yeah, it is very nice to see both players are working very hard to expand as aggressively as possible rather than committing to a lot of one base play. I do really like that the one base 1-1-1 against Protoss is just so difficult to do, but still works. That's the perfect kind of balance in my mind, in that it is effective, but it's not like half of the PVTs that you see MLG. And so it really encourages the player to play a little bit of a different style instead of going for a very effective one base all-ins.
Yes, sir, indeed. So it does look like nrgLuckyFool is going to go ahead and drop down his CC first, as I obviously have stated before, very much enjoy seeing and think is a great strategy for FRB, whereas iSAxslav is going to go ahead and drop down to his Nexus as well. So both of these players are fast expanding, going to get a huge boost to their economy, and we will see where they go from there.
I like the decision of Axslav to wait to see that the command center first was actually the build with his scouting probe before committing to dropping his own. Because if your opponent does go for some kind of very aggressive early play and you went for a CC first, that's still a dangerous build, even on an FRB map, and you have to be keeping careful tabs on your opponent, otherwise you could just be totally wiped out by a very aggressive play.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will see what Luckyfool does do from here. It's very possible that he'll still do the 1-1-1 style, and I think that would be pretty effective here. I feel like the problem with last game is really that he went for Marines, like in a heavy Marine stem attack, I'm sorry, stem build, but he didn't actually attack. You know, he waited far too long to actually make use of his timing. So we'll see if he tries to do that again, if he goes for a different drop style play, or if he actually goes for 1-1-1, which I think I would like to see.
Yeah, 1-1-1 would be effective off of just two base if he decides that that is the play he wants to go for, though he hasn't taken gases quite yet, and so that might be indicative of a less kind of gas and tech oriented play, though we do see the third base going up for Axslav right now, really off the back of just a single gateway, so he doesn't have any kind of stalkers or anything like that, so even a bunker rush basically against this base would be able to take it out, so obviously Axslav really committing to getting to the late game macro.
Yeah, indeed, and I think Axslav is basically just banking on the fact that Terran doesn't typically bunker rush against Protoss too often. Of course, that happens sometimes, so I suppose that he feels safe, but he is most certainly taking the risk. But at the same time, he is up one game, so he can take that risk if he wants to. If it fails, okay, he'll just do a better build next game. But if it doesn't fail, well, he has a huge economy advantage.
That's a very good point, that he is definitely taking advantage of the fact that he won that first game. He knows he can play a little bit risky here. Instead of going for cheese that we see in some tournaments, he's going for a very aggressive economic play, knowing that if he can just hold on to this advantage, his opponent will have absolutely no way of coming back for the massive deficit that he has found himself in.
Alright, so we do see two barracks being produced for nrgLuckyFool, as well as a factory. No doubt he will be putting a tech lab on that, unless he decides to go for straight up drops. I have a feeling that he'll be doing tech lag. Of course, that could just be me, like, really wanting to see 1-1-1 with FRB. I don't know. I could be biased here.
Well, the starport is on the way, along with a tech lab on both the factory and that barracks. So, might be going for a kind of modified FRB with, modified 1-1-1 with stim pack, perhaps. Though, I just don't quite know what he is currently planning on doing with the gas count he has. So, he has taken his second gas and will be able to begin investing in some very tech-heavy units. And that starport is obviously going to be switching on to that tech lab now that the factory is floated away.
So I think now we can actually revisit the question of who's the tech lab and who's the building in this composition. Who do you think? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Anyways, so as we can see here, iSAxslav, of course, is making his robotics facility. It's about a fourth of the way finished, and 2 gateways are in production, so he's gearing up to make a more defensive type army. Right now, he really just doesn't have very many units to defend. Of course, actually, Terran really hasn't hasn't scouted this entire game. He only knows that there is an expansion for iSAxslav, so Terran really has no idea that there are 3 bases. We'll see what he does choose to do as far as builds go. Obviously, he's getting that Banshee out there with Cloak, so I think that'll be kind of effective.
He's going for Cloak and for Siege Tech, so it looks as though he's trying to, when you have 2 bases in FRB, that's basically 1.5 bases, so it looks like he's kind of going for, like, instead of the, like, 1-1-1, the 3-1-1, which can now be supported based off of that additional amount of money, and this could be really dangerous for iSAxslav, considering he just so aggressively took this base. He does, fortunately, have the robotics already done, and is working on the robotics base, so he'll be able to get Observers and Colossus in a little bit, but Siege Tech is almost done, along with, and look at the timing on this. Stimpack, Cloaking, and Siege Tech are all going to be finishing within about 15 seconds of each other.
Wow, this could actually be a really, really effective push from a LuckyFool. Of course, LuckyFool is moving out here with the Banshee and is racked up 3 kills right now. Finally, actually pulling his probes, not without losing 5 Banshees right there. And there goes the Cloak from LuckyFool. Now, I'm looking for an Observer. I actually have no idea where it's at right now. I have the... Yeah, it's not even close to this Banshee.
And the Banshee is moving around and trying to pick off any of the anti-air units that it might need to deal with later. Also, that will be very nice for shielding future Banshees in the gigantic push that is currently being organized kind of down in the natural. There's 2 siege tanks already out and a large cluster of Marines getting ready to go. The Banshee up to 11 kills, several of those actually being Stalkers and Sentries.
Yes, indeed. So that Banshee just did so much damage, and that's kind of like the delayed Banshee push that you kind of, or not push, but harass that you are starting to see a little bit more and more. You basically get your opponent to think you're not actually going for Banshees, because typically you'd see Banshees early in the game when you're vulnerable, and you actually get it a little bit later, catch them off guard, and, you know, just do a ton of damage, as we saw there. It does look like LuckyFool is moving out here, though, with his Marines and tanks, as well as a Raven to drop down a point defense drone to help defend against Stalker attacks, and this push could be really strong.
Absolutely. He also has a large number of SCVs that he'll be able to use to construct bunkers with. He had a Banshee that moved into the main and was chased away pretty effectively. Only got 1 kill and is quite low on health, but he's now sending that in to go and try to just deal some harassment, though it is clear that iSAxslav knows that this force is in the middle of the map, but really isn't able to contest the siege up position. They get into an amazing position right on the bottom of the ramp, and it's going to be incredibly dangerous for these slow Zealots and Colossus without range to try to get in and deal with that, particularly as the bunkers finish.
Yes, indeed. So LuckyFool does look like he's going to be tiptoeing here a little bit, or leapfrogging rather. Tiptoeing either way. Leapfrog, same thing. Actually, it's not the same thing. Whatever. Moving these tanks up here to get some more better siege and better position against the iSAxslav. And iSAxslav does have that 1 Colossi that will be able to take out Marines really easily. But if LuckyFool does position his units correctly, it shouldn't be able to do too much damage without LuckyFool just doing a ton of splash against the Colossi.
Yeah, and now there is a big push-up of Marines moving in. The Sinothermal Lancers almost done. Some huge siege tank shots going down. That 1 Colossus being targeted down by the siege tank. First Colossus going down, though the siege tech is done. I'm sorry, the range is done, killing a lot of Marines right there. But so much of that army died trying to get in and finish that off. Now iSAxslav is at a huge supply deficit, just 86 to 111.
Yeah, and there is 1 Colossi that is almost finished, but I really do not think it's going to be enough to clean up LuckyFool's units. He does have, Protoss does have 5 more Stalkers as well as a Zealot, but they're not going to be able to do any damage against these incredibly placed siege tanks.
Yeah, and as the siege tanks are now moving up onto the ramp, there's a big stim, and actually all these Marines getting cleaned up pretty quickly. These Stalkers are currently working on that Raven, though they need to be working on the tanks. A nice little bit of a flank with the few remaining probes that iSAxslav has, but is he actually going to be able to clean up this attack? Oh, a nice lift up of that siege tank is able to keep that tank alive, but unfortunately all of these bunkers are still in place, so despite having lost most of his Marines, he's going to be able to continue the contain.
Yes. So it does look like LuckyFool is continuing to stick on 2 bases as well as just produce as many units as he can. Is very heavily committing to this attack, and iSAxslav is just in a lot of danger right now. However, he does have 2 Colossi, and I believe if he can use them effectively, he will be able to survive here, but you know, it's just going to come down to patience and positioning.
Yeah, patience is definitely going to be what iSAxslav needs. He needs to calm down and not worry about having lost that base, because his opponent just started his 3rd base, and so he's really not all that far behind. He is now down to 41 probes against 47 SCVs. His opponent, definitely not a great place to be, but it's not unrecoverable either. The way, or the biggest danger that he needs to worry about right now is panicking and trying to break this contain too early.
Yeah, he like you said, he just really needs to chill out, be patient. I would actually wonder if I was gonna say Immortals might be a little bit of help, but the Marines would definitely do a ton of damage to them. He's just basically trying to get as many Colossi as he can, as well as add in some Stalkers.
He's getting a whole bunch of Marines down at that south base for pretty much free, though. iSAxslav showing excellent unit splitting, which is a major part of FRB games, because you need to worry about harassment around just a lot more bases that you have on the map. You need to split up your forces, and he sent down just 1 Colossus with some Stalkers and some Zealots, and now is using that very nice army splitting to get into the midfield and cut off any reinforcements.
Yes, but at the same time, it does look like LuckyFool is chosen to go for this 3rd base, and iSAxslav is really going to need to make a good decision here. He is choosing to retreat. However, these tanks are going to no doubt be sieged up when it comes time for an engagement, and actually they're not sieged up quite yet. Oh, this could be a big mistake by LuckyFool. There we go, there's the siege. Oh, but the Protoss player deciding not to attack into that. Very smart decision by him, but oh man, what is going to happen from here?
There was a huge blunder, though, from iSAxslav, unfortunately. As he was moving down that ramp, he was just on attack move with all of his forces from his natural, so they stopped to shoot at the bunkers that were still in place. If he'd been able to move them down, he might have been able to catch the siege tanks before they had sieged up, but the early warning of your forces are under attack did give LuckyFool the time that he needed to get all of these siege tanks sieged up, and they are now doing unbelievable damage, completely coring the center of iSAxslav's forces, and though it does look like he's going to be able to clean that up, he is going to need to do some immediate damage against his opponent.
Yeah, he is going to have to do some immediate damage and macro hard because, well, as you can see here, iSAxslav only has 1 base right now. Of course, it does have a decent amount of minerals left in it, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough to support the army that he really needs to break into Terran's bases. It does look like LuckyFool does have 2 tanks at his natural, but actually, iSAxslav choosing to go for the command center here at the top right of the screen, and he'll either force Terran to move out or he will take this out successfully.
He does force the liftoff and the cancel on the planetary fortress, though it remains to be seen if it's actually going to go down. If all of these SCVs start pairing it might be able to make it into the empty air, but no, they all just sat there and were eaten alive by Colossus laser beams. So now the pressure is definitely on LuckyFool. He needs to fend off any kind of attack from his opponent, but also deal with the fact that iSAxslav has just double expanded, retaking both of his former bases, and if he's able to hold on to these and do a counter contain on his opponent, he'll be able to recover from that damage that he took initially.
Yeah, both of these players are actually in pretty good positions, considering everything that's happened. However, LuckyFool does have, looks like 5 Vikings right now, and is producing 2 more at a time, so those are going to just completely demolish the Colossi rather, almost to the point that I might say this is an overreaction as far as Viking count goes.
Yeah, with 6 Vikings on the way, with a 7th joining them against just 2 Colossus, that's about the maximum you want. If he continues Viking production after this point, it will definitely be a mistake. We do see, though, that there are 2 Banshees that are kind of hanging out behind the base and might be able to get in and deal some damage while this attack is happening.
Yeah, it does look like LuckyFool does siege up some tanks to take out these ground units, as well as sending these Vikings to take out the Colossi so effectively. Actually, would Colossus manage to survive right there? All he needed was 1 more round of shots to take that out. However, he did not do that, and iSAxslav will hold on for just a little bit longer. Of course, he is being forced to retreat for now, and there are so many Marines here for our Terran player. It's going to be so scary for iSAxslav to deal with this.
Yeah, Lucky Fool did pick the perfect timing to move out with his air power with just about 7 Vikings and a couple of Banshees against the 2 Colossus. That was the exact number that he needed, and now that he's lost a couple of them, he's resupplying 3 at a time with the Viking. And because there's only 1 Colossus with a second one joining it right now, the massive numbers of Marines will not die quite as quickly and might be able to get in and do the critical damage that they need to, which is what's happening right in the middle right now. A couple of nice force fields are keeping them from getting the perfect concave, though it is definitely up to iSAxslav now to retreat. The siege tanks were being very, very effective right in the middle, though that final Colossus going down might mean that iSAxslav is in an awful position right here, and it is definitely reflected in the supplies.
Yes, indeed. So Lucky Fool is just moving up into the ramp of his Protoss opponent. iSAxslav being forced to move so many probes up into his natural. He will, without a doubt, lose this Nexus as iSAxslav is just retreating, and this is going to be so hard for iSAxslav to pull out of.
He does have a pretty good bank of money, however, and so if he's able to just get a couple more warpins, he might be able to do something about this army, though what the major problem is right now is that he needs to protect this 3rd base. If this base goes down, it will be incredibly difficult for him to try to recover from.
And it does look like Lucky Fool is making a bit of a contained siege up here where the 3rd base is. Of course, iSAxslav was going to go around for a counterattack, but a huge engagement here. So many Marines, Colossi taking out Vikings taking out all of the Colossi, and these Marines are going to be able to clean up this ground army so easily. In fact, dropping down these Vikings onto the ground to soak up some shots from those Stalkers, letting the Marines just do so much damage.
Yeah, a very nicely timed attack by Lucky Fool. He sieged up his tanks to make sure that his opponent would not be moving easily through the middle, and has now moved them up. They will be rejoining with this army. A gigantic probe pull that was attempting to get in and do something, but unfortunately is not enough, and iSAxslav is forced to GG.
Alright, excellent game there by both of those players. Alright guys, it looks like we are going to go ahead and move into the next game, which will be the final of this best of 3. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and load that one up.
It is now 1-1 for iSAxslav versus... how am I so dumb? What? There we go. Wow, sorry, I don't know why I totally blanked right there. But it is now 1-1 for iSAxslav versus Lucky Fool, and we will be back with Game 3 in just a moment.